Hi everyone, my name is Noah Schmitz and I'm an artist living and working in Brooklyn. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys a mixed media workshop using materials that you can find all around the house. So, before we get started, I just want to introduce some of the materials that we can be using here. Some important tools would be scissors for cutting out paper that you're going to be adhering to your surface, a ruler if you want to achieve any straight edges, tape, it could be duct tape, clear tape, any type of tape, scotch. You're going to want a glue stick, some markers. Now I have Sharpies, but I would recommend water-soluble markers. Colored pencils. You can also use crayons if you feel like. And I just bought a variety pack of brushes so that we can have a variety of different brush strokes, thicknesses, and textures. So, what we're first going to be doing is building up a surface. Now, I have a canvas here, but if you don't have a canvas, feel free to build your surface from paper. Some of the items that I brought for building the surface is some colored paper that I bought at Walmart, some lined paper, paper towels that you can use for cleaning up messes, but also use as a substrate to build your surface. And some yarn, some colored yarn. And last but not least, a cheap little paint set for once we've already built our surface. Alright, so let's get started here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start grabbing different colors of paper. Let's see, I got pink, do a little bit of yellow and green, and some blue. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to start cutting out shapes. Now, if you can, try and imagine that your scissor tool is more akin to a drawing tool, so that you're actually drawing shapes, which you find really interesting, that you're then going to adhere with tape or glue to your canvas or to a piece of paper or whatever you have available. So I'm just going to quickly cut out a couple shapes and we're going to get started. Maybe I'll just go with that happy little mistake right there. Alright. So as you're starting to cut out your shapes, be paying attention to color and composition, figuring out what's going to look good. So now we have a couple shapes of different colors cut out, and I'm just for the fun of it going to use a little bit of the lined paper. Alright, there it is. Let's see, where do I want this? So it can be really fun to just play around with the placement of your different shapes. And once you figure out a composition that you like, and I'm pretty happy with this, you're going to want to adhere either scotch tape or glue, a simple Elmer's glue stick to the back of these shapes, and just place them down where you feel like having them on your surface. And now I'm just gonna put some glue on this. You glue the whole thing, or you can just glue the perimeter. Whatever works for you. I'm just gonna try out the perimeter here. See if that sticks. Yeah, it looks like I completely forgot my composition here. That's okay. Roll something new. Now don't worry if your paper goes over the edges of your canvas or your paper substrate that you're building. Oops, because I didn't add enough glue there. Because if it does go past the edges of your canvas, you can just simply snip them so that they're flush with the canvas edges. Alright, the last piece here. gonna try a new placement for this one here. All right, I like that. That works for me. So there you go. You have a couple shapes that you just cut out and adhered to your surface. So now that we've done this, I'm just gonna spruce up my canvas with a little more texture by introducing some yarn. So this is where you're gonna grab your scissors and you're gonna cut out a little bit of yarn, and you can taper glue that. Let's see. So I'm just gonna make, and again, try and look at your yarn as a drawing tool as opposed to its traditional function with embroidery. We're gonna try to use it as a drawing or painting or mark making tool. And now I'm just going to snip it at the edge of the canvas here. All right, great. So the next step is let's grab some of our colored markers and let's just start drawing some lines and shapes in. Now remember, you can do mark making like this, or you can draw in actual shapes and fill them in, but try and respond to the shapes that you already placed down. For example, outlining shapes or coloring in little areas that weren't covered. So just trying to create cohesion among all the various mediums that you're using. There we go, I just went in with some red. Just showing you guys a couple different techniques here. You know, you can do lines, you can do different patterns, right? And something interesting about multimedia or mixed media process is that the marker is going to react differently based on the material that you have layered up on your surface. So you can see this scratchy faded effect when I'm painting, or rather drawing with the Sharpie marker directly onto the canvas, whereas it's a much fuller stroke on the paper. For our last step, we are just gonna take some of these cheap paints that I bought at Walmart. So normally you can dip in with a little bit of water to wet your brush. I'm just gonna go in straight, which is called the dry brush technique. I find that there's some more interesting textures. So I'm gonna see what happens when I mix the red paint with the red marker. A little bit of mark making here with the red, but I think we've got enough red here, so I'm gonna move on. And to show you what the sponge can do, this is kind of interesting. So as you can see, it creates a completely different brush stroke and completely different texture and consistency. And last but not least, we're gonna go in with a couple of colored pencils just to show you guys what the variety of mediums look like next to each other. So again, we're getting that scratchy effect that's juxtaposed against the paint marker, rather the Sharpie, and the acrylic paint. So you can see the contrast there. It's lighter, blends in with the color underneath it a little bit better, instead of being such a stark contrast. So there you go, guys. There is a pretty large variety of different multimedia and mixed media textures that you can achieve. I hope you guys enjoyed and that you can use some of these techniques and approaches and processes that I introduced to you today in terms of building a surface and then painting on it. It's really fun and it doesn't really require any sort of hard to get materials. So I highly recommend this as an at-home arts and crafts project.